Okay, so let's take a look at part one here. First quote, I'm more interested in how a man lives than how a star dies. I like that one. That's one of my favorites. Okay, so the human sciences is the study of humans in a scientific way, okay? The traditional four areas that focus on this, and my apologies, I think I only mentioned three last time, is psychology, economics, anthropology, and sociology. To be clear, psychology is kind of generally the study of human behavior. Economics is the study of human behavior as it relates to markets and things like that. Again, those of you taking economics probably have a better definition than that. Anthropology is the study of ancient man. Someone asked me, I think maybe someone in this room, is anthropology and paleontology related? Well, paleontology, yes, absolutely they're related, but paleontology deals with sort of animals in general, so like dinosaurs and things like that. But anthropology focuses on humans and human culture as a sort of a historical scientific analysis. And sociology, for those of you not familiar with that term, is the study of human and group behavior. So like groups in general and how they behave and like societal norms and things like that. Yes? Some would say yes, it could be, right? Just like Mr. Libby would say that chemistry is a branch of physics, right? Has he not made that argument to you, that everything is physics? There you go, right? So, okay. So these three disciplines, because they are scientific in nature, like any science, are based on observation, and then they kind of move from there, okay? But this begs the question, like, how can we study humans, okay? Well, at one level, we could do it from a natural science perspective. We could take the atoms and the molecules, and I could come up with the recipe for a human. I could say, okay, to make a human, 63% hydrogen, 25.5% oxygen, 9.5% carbon, 1.5% nitrogen, and 0.5 other stuff. Here's the recipe, go make me a human. You got the chemistry, right? But I would think a lot of us would argue that there's more to being a human than just the chemistry involved. So for example, what's the difference between human being and all other animals? How would you answer that? Brains, emotions. Okay, philosophical argument. They think they're better than everyone else. Okay. So humans have choices. Humans can create choices or have. Maybe I'll put it in a philosophical sense. Do humans have free will? Maybe free will. Volume of brains. Okay. So these are kind of some of the things. Okay. Let me throw a few others on there. Okay. One of the classic ones is the so-called mirror test. What the mirror test is, if you put a mirror in front of an animal, does it recognize that it's itself in the mirror, or does it think it's another animal? So for example, a lot of dogs, when they see a mirror, will bark at it because they think it's another dog. Not every dog, but a lot of dogs do. And other animals just ignore the thing in the mirror. They don't process it. But humans, even babies, can recognize that thing I'm looking at in the mirror, it's me. I can see my own reflection. But the thing is, other animals actually can pass that test. The classic one would be chimpanzees. They pass it. There's actually another animal that passes the mirror test. Can you guess what it is? Dolphin. That's right. Dolphins pass the mirror test. Other aspects that we often attribute with humans are language. But do other animals pass that test? Have you ever heard of animals having a language? Anyone heard of that? What animals? Like baby sounds. Okay. Have any of you heard of animals that have a sort of capacity for language? All animals? Ants? Okay, but let's talk some of the big examples. Like which animals? Dolphins. Some would argue whales have a communication. There's actually a lot of studies on elephants, that elephants actually have a specific language, like they use the same tone to communicate. Now, it's not just that they're making sounds, but that they, just like language itself, that they have a specific vocabulary. Some would say dolphins, whales. It could be, absolutely. So sometimes that argument breaks down that humans are the only ones with language. You could say, well, even ants have a language. It's more of a chemical language than a like verbal thing, but there you go. Yes.
It's like, you know when mothers sometimes say that they can like their babies like cries?
Yep.
Like, oh, you're hungry or your diaper's full.
Yep.
A lot of people can actually do that with their animals. Like how, depending on
Sure.
how you bark at me, I know what you mean.
Sure. Okay, let's look at the next one. Reason. Some would argue that humans have a reasoning ability. Do you think animals have the ability to reason, problem solve? I would argue they do. I mean, my cat can get out of like the little cage I put it in. Yeah. This morning I brought up the example of the octopus. Okay. The octopus is a surprisingly intelligent problem-solving animal. For example, I don't have the exact details of this down, but they had this like aquarium, and they had a male octopus in one tank and like a female octopus in another tank across the room. And somehow they'd leave at night and they'd come in the morning, and the male was in the female's tank. And so they finally put a camera on it, and sure enough, this octopus was able to get out of its thing and like scurry across the floor and get into the female tank. And no one thought an octopus could do anything like that, that it was incredible, okay? Other animals have had reasoning abilities that are very stunning to humans in terms of what they can do. Yes?
Honestly, you also say that not all humans have very
Sure. Depends, again, all these things are dependent on how we define it. Now, what about, this was the one you brought up, free will, right? That humans are able to make these kinds of choices. Do you think that applies to some animals in the animal kingdom? Okay, maybe you have an argument there. And then again, there's the religious argument as well, or a philosophical argument that might say that there's something beyond us and that our consciousness that sort of brings us to a different level than the animal kingdom. Okay? Whatever your opinion on that, we would no doubt have this sort of conclusion that there are difficulties in studying humans scientifically beyond, say, studying mice, right? Because humans are more complex in their organization, okay? So through the unit, there's going to be 4 scientific aspects we're going to look at. Observation, measurement, which we kind of looked at already, experimentation, and laws of human sciences. Okay, we'll do the natural sciences too, but we're going to focus on human sciences, okay? We'll look at the similarities and differences between human sciences and natural sciences, absolutely, and the problems of that, okay? So we're going to start by looking at the first aspect today, observation, okay? Okay, so before I bring it up, I'm going to set the stage for you guys, okay? If you had to study humans, okay, let's say I ask you guys to write a paper about grade 9 cooking class in this school, and you had to observe grade 9 cooking class. How would you do this? How would you start your observation of the scientific study of grade 9 cooking class in this school? Okay, so let's say you did that, but how are you actually going to do the observation? Like, what's the... Go into the class. Okay, so what do you mean by go into the class? Sit down and watch them. Okay, different scenario. Let's say a university professor wanted to do a study of grade 12 theory of knowledge classes. Was going to write a paper about it, actually was going to make a documentary about it, and put it on the CBC. And let's say he was going to, just like you guys, sit here and watch you guys. Let's say he also was going to set up 4 cameras in the room on tripods around the room, filming you guys for the rest of this course. Okay, you guys imagine that? My question is, would your behavior change? Why?
Because you know you're being watched.
Maybe dress a little bit nicer, knowing it's going on television eventually. Maybe use a little bit nicer, not swear as much or at all, right? Brush your hair a little bit more, right? For some of us, suck in our guts a little bit more, right? A little of that. Sure. Okay. That's known as the observer effect, that the observer has an effect on the thing he's observing. How can we reduce that? Great. So first of all, the professor, would he be here? No. So he doesn't show up. 2, the cameras hidden, right? Hidden in the room. Maybe the professor is here. Maybe he's under my desk right now with a notebook, writing notes right now about you guys in this room. Or let me propose something even different. Let's say the professor actually is in the room right now. Let's say you had this person who transferred from another school, so to speak, who went to some other school and just arrived here for the first time and claimed to be from some other school in some other city. But in reality, it's actually a professor who actually looked fairly young, who decided to do a study on grade 12 TOK and decided to just disguise himself amongst the grade 12 students. No, but he's going to write a paper and he's going to make a documentary. He's got hidden cameras set up all around this room. He's making notes in his mind and he writes down things and he's going to make a ton of money off this documentary and he's going to do well at his own university because he's gone undercover to do this. It's possible that this could happen. It would reduce the observer effect because you guys wouldn't know you're being observed. And that has actually happened. People who went into other cultures, and the term is they go native. They integrate within the, if any of you have seen like, what's that movie? Avatar, right? Where they try to blend in with the culture itself so they're not noticed amongst them. So first of all, I want you to think about that there could be this so-called student who transferred from, let's say it was Toronto, just some city. They transferred to this school and they claim that they're, finishing their IB, but in reality they're this, actually like this 35-year-old professor who's writing a paper on grade 12 TOK classes. It would reduce the observer effect, which would make maybe the accuracy of the study a little better, okay? The problem with human sciences is it's hard to observe humans, especially when we're talking about their mental states. If you ask someone what you're thinking right now, right? Even in movies, they sometimes say, well, here, I have this power, I can read your mind. But you know what? Think about it for a second. Is your mind like the way you talk? Do you think the way you talk? Or do you think in like sentences and like periods? No. Our mind is a jumble of imagery and language and other things. If we actually could read each other's minds, we may not be able to make sense of it. Even what we get would not make sense to us. It's not like they show in the movies where you go, oh, I know what he's thinking right now. It's not that easy, okay? Now, one way you could do is say, well, what are you thinking right now? And you could ask someone. And like you pointed out, two things could happen. One, they could lie to you. And two, they not actually even know what they're thinking. So they can't even express what they're saying there. So it's really hard to do that, okay? Another thing about humans is we tend to overestimate our strengths and underestimate our weaknesses. Great example. They did a survey of 1 million US high school students, and they asked them, rank yourselves in terms of your ability to get along with other people. And all of them ranked themselves as above average. Every single one of them ranked themselves as, I'm above average in my ability to get along with people. Well, if that was true, then there wouldn't be an average, right? Like that doesn't make sense. Like how could you be above average if there's an average at all? So clearly some of them thought they overestimated their ability to get along with others. Okay? And we also tend to underestimate our weaknesses. So if I ask everyone in this room, are you a good person? Chances are you're going to say yes, because you don't want to appear to not be. So you're going to present the image. You don't want people to think badly of you. So sometimes, and you're not necessarily lying, you're just underestimating your own abilities. Okay, so I'm going to relate this to something we looked at last year. One of the logical fallacies, and I think it's up here, the poster, I think some of you girls in the room did this poster, was the fallacy of the loaded question. Okay? What was the loaded question? Do you guys remember, since you did the poster?
It's like when you ask somebody a question with the intent of like making, what's the word? Like
influencing? Yeah. 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 Yeah, like do you always cheat on tests? right? You should not answer that question because it's a loaded question. If you answer yes, then you always cheat on tests. If you answer no, then you say, well, you only sometimes cheat on tests, right? There's no right answer to that question. The loaded question is a fallacy that's designed to influence the answer, okay? So here was a 1980s poll they did where they asked a question and got results, but they asked it two different ways. Here's the first question. They asked, do you think there should be an amendment to the Constitution prohibiting abortions, or shouldn't there be such an amendment? These were the results. The same question, but slightly worded differently. Do you believe there should be an amendment to the Constitution protecting the life of an unborn child, or shouldn't there be such an amendment? And the results. Now really, all that changes here is a couple things. It's saying prohibiting abortions here and protecting the life of an unborn child here. There's one other change. It said, do you think there should be, or do you believe there should be? Slight wording differences, but look at the difference in the numbers. Significant statistical difference there, okay? So the reality is, the wording of a question can absolutely have effect on the outcome, which is what you guys talked about at the beginning today, putting a number to things. We talked about the IQ test, how someone designed it. Well, the IQ test is a bunch of questions. Someone designed those questions. By designing the wording, they can actually affect the answer, okay? So it's really, really important that you think about how that actually is occurring, okay? And people are skilled at this, especially people like politicians. Like, this could be a big deal. What if a politician wanted to raise the driving age in this province to 20? That would directly affect you guys, right? All of a sudden, those of you who have driver's license, nope, take them away. That sucks for you. They could design a question to get statistical data that favors their position. Do you think this happens in politics for real? That they do this? Absolutely. So this study of humans in a scientific way is big deal. It has real world effects, and so we should consider it as an important topic, okay? You might buy, so has this ever happened to you? You get all excited about buying something because the price looked good. Then you go to the store, and they're all sold out. Oh, we only had a few of those. But you know, we have this similar thing to what you're looking for. It's just a little more expensive, right? Or you go to the store and you didn't actually want to buy the thing, but you're buying something else because of their effect on you. Of course people know this stuff works. Things in advertising and stuff like that. You might have a dream that you could run into a burning building and save somebody, pull them out of the burning building. A lot of people, when asked that question, could you do that? They say, yeah, I could. You know, if it was the circumstances, I could pull a family member out of a burning building. I absolutely could do that. Yet, when those situations actually happen for real, it's actually a very small percentage of people who actually do that, who actually can do what I just described there. So you may not actually be as heroic as you imagine yourself to be. Now that doesn't mean you're a liar. You really believe that you could do that. In your heart of hearts, you believe it. But what actually occurs may be a little different. Okay, so I talked about it before, this idea of the observer effect, that this occurs. Now this doesn't occur in the natural sciences as much. When a geologist studies rocks, the rocks aren't affected by the fact, they don't care that they're being observed, okay? But when we study people, they do care that they're being observed, okay? So, as I mentioned, again, ways you can overcome the observer effect are ways that you can integrate and reduce that effect is to, for example, go native, live with the tribe, okay? Maybe that's happening right now. Maybe someone's living with this tribe of TOK students right now, okay? That way it would reduce the effect. And by the way, that also happens, sometimes it's not a secret. A scientist will go into a tribe and start studying them. And I mean, I think that happened in Avatar, right? They knew that it wasn't a native avatar. They just kind of got used to it over time, okay? The second solution is the hiding of the cameras. Now, this brings up an ethical question. What if I told you it's true that there isn't a professor in the room, but there has been hidden cameras in this room since the first day of TOK last year in grade 11? That for that whole time, it's been recording you guys. I just never told you. As a matter of fact, I'm actually not a high school teacher. I'm actually a movie producer, and I'm going to make a movie about this. But I never told you that. Would some of you get upset about that? Do you think that would be unethical in some ways? In the United States, they very often take younger-looking police officers and put them in high schools as high school students, undercover, so to speak, to look for drug dealing and stuff like that. And often when they then bust their friends, so to speak, in high school, they get upset. They feel that that wasn't right, that that was going on. But that doesn't happen in the natural sciences. Geologists don't care, right? So here's 3 examples of observer effect. Okay? In psychology, they labeled 2 groups of students. One was labeled the brights, and one was labeled the less brights. And they taught them that year. At the end of the year, even though there was no difference between the 2 groups, they didn't make any reason to decide them, the bright group actually did better academically than the less bright group. The argument would be that there was expectations on the bright students that they would do better. Okay? Now I'm actually going to ask you guys this question for real. Think about it. I know some of you are struggling to stay awake right now. Is it because it's so hot in here? Maybe. Turn off that air, but holy moly, let's get some lights on. But I'm going to melt here in a second. Do you guys feel, again, think hard about this, that as an IB class, teachers treat you differently and have different expectations of you than other classes in this school? Yeah? Okay. So that would speak to what I'm saying here, right? Should, now let's talk the ethical question. Should that happen? Okay, but yeah, but is it right that is there an ethical question? Should teachers treat groups differently based on the grouping that they're in? Okay, well, what about this? Let's go a little more extreme, hypothetical. Should I treat the boys different than the girls?
Yes. Because guys would want some stuff.
Right. Should I treat one racial group of kids different than another racial group of kids?
No, just respect the culture. And I think
You see how we can start to extreme this, right? Now, yes, I'm using hyperbole here to make my point, but it's nonetheless something we should be aware of, that there is an expectation on grouping, that when we group people into a group, there's an expectation on that group to do certain things. Do we group people by age, right? Should I expect more of you guys at the age you are than, say, 5-year-olds, right? Some ways, yes, and in some ways, no, right? In economics, and again, those of you who've studied it know about hopefully the bull market and the bear market. Have you heard those terms? Please say yes, okay? In a bull market, when most people expect prices to go up, an investor will buy stocks hoping to sell them later at that inflated price and turn a profit, okay? But if everyone behaves like this, the demand for the stocks increases and it causes the prices to rise, right? In a bear market, when people expect prices to fall, a good investor should sell their stocks hoping to buy them back later at a lower price. But if everyone does that, then the increase in the supply of stocks will push prices down, okay? So what I'm saying is, what people expect affects what's going on in economics. In anthropology, okay? According to anthropologist Wade Davis, when a sorcerer in an Aborigine tribe casts a death curse on someone, the individual very often will actually get sick and die. Now, does that mean that they're actually performing a death curse and it's actually working? Some might say yes, but others might say that it's actually using something called a self-fulfilling prophecy. For those of you who study psychology, you may have heard of this, okay? That we often make predictions that we ourselves believe in and go through processes to make them true, okay? Even at a subconscious level, that we often make our own predictions true by actually influencing our behavior. I bet you can think of your own example of this, where you expected something to happen, and sure enough it happened, but if you go back in time and think about the way it went from the time you made your prediction to the time of the event, you might have actually done things that might have actually influenced whether or not it happened or not, Okay? For example, if I predict you're going to break your leg in a football game, you might actually, well, no, you might actually intentionally play with a more conscious attitude to not break your legs to disprove my prediction, right? So you might go, yeah, look at it, I never broke my leg. But in reality, I actually influenced your behavior because my prediction actually changed the way you would have played that game normally because now you were more aware of your own safety, okay? So it kind of can do all kinds of things in terms of effects there. Okay, and so that's the observer effect as it relates, to the human sciences. All right, and now